Hi everyone, it's Caroline, Director of Marketing at Siege Media, and today I'm going to share blog UX examples that hurt your linkability. We'll get new clients come to us sometimes and they're ready to dive right into link building, and we have to pump the brakes really quick because their blog UX and design is just not up to snuff. And we have to recommend some general changes and best practices so that we can make sure a well branded, great looking blog is something that will appeal to their audience and earn links. So, I'm going to cover a few examples of areas that we immediately try to correct before starting to link build. So, the first one is just general poor copy formatting. If your blog post is still really small text, and when I say small, I mean under 16 pixels, maybe the font itself is really hard to read. Maybe you're using a font color that's a really light gray as opposed to a darker shade. Or if your width of your entire blog is just too long, maybe the formatting of your images with your blog copy is just unbalanced and hard to follow. It can be a lot of different things that attribute to just overall poor legibility and poor UX on a blog. An example here that I'm going to share is from thehouse.com, which is a snowboarding and outdoor recreation e-commerce brand. They have a blog post on snowboard sizing, and you can see it's kind of just all over the place in terms of things that could need improvement. I'm seeing a table of contents that's really obtrusive and not properly aligned. I'm seeing the text with the images just all over the place. The column width is different sizes. And it just doesn't seem like an appealing blog post to make me want to read, especially in the snowboarding community, something that's outdoor and adventure sports. You want to look a lot more fun than what this is communicating. A competitor example would be evo.com. I really like how simplified their blog content is. This is basically the same exact topic on snowboard sizing. And you can see it's a lot more streamlined. It's one uniform column. The text is really easy to browse and skim through. It also breaks it up with a variety of different images, which I really like. You have some diagrams, you have some video content, you have some photography. They really do a good job at switching it up and keeping the user engaged on the post. So this would be a standard that I think you need to match or even beat if you're going to be playing in this space. A second thing that I see that usually needs to be corrected is just an out-of-date sidebar. Blog sidebars are consistently ignored or just an afterthought when it comes to blog UX, and I think that's a huge mistake. Some of the tips that we typically provide people are looking at their social media buttons in their sidebar. Are your social media buttons well branded? Are they out of date? Or do you still have Google Plus in your sidebar? That's something you should probably check right now and remove. Other things like a archive drop down could just immediately date your sidebar and just feel off. Are your CTAs kind of all over the place? Do they just not feel very uniform? Is it just a very crowded sidebar? For example, 1-800-Flowers on their blog, I find that their sidebar it's just not the best formatting. They also have some poorly designed and old social media buttons that I think could use updating. On the flip side, I really like ProFlowers on their blog. Their actual blog role is really cool. So this is kind of a creative way. You'll see in ProFlowers blog post, there isn't an actual sidebar. It's just one column and it's all the content. Instead, I find that they have taken some sidebar elements and incorporated it more on the blog role. So you'll see things like highlighting social media posts, they'll highlight related products. So that might be a smart way to balance it if maybe you don't have a sidebar currently and you don't want to implement it on actual blog content. Maybe you can see where you can get some of those other converting elements in the blog role. Or is there just an easier way you can implement it to the right-hand side? So think about, what is your sidebar looking like right now? Do you even have a sidebar to begin with? And how you can make that work a lot better for you and just improve your overall UX. Another one is the misuse of blog categories. So I found this can sometimes hurt your link potential or just general UX if your blog navigation just seems really weird. An example of this is Container Store. I find that they're categorizing their blog content a little bit non-optimally than what I would recommend. You'll see in their drop down For organizing tips, they've categorized based on basically content format. So you'll see things like videos, projects, etc. listed there. When actually, I think the left-hand sidebar where it shows room type, so kitchen, living room, and so forth, that should be what's in the navigation. Because if I'm a user and I'm browsing their blog, I'm not necessarily trying to browse based on a video or a blog post. If I'm browsing based on how to improve my kitchen, I just want to get right to all of the kitchen ideas. So just that quick tweak of reevaluating your information architecture could improve your UX quite a bit. A next thing, and this is a huge thing that we usually have to look at when new clients come our way, is aggressive calls to action. So especially if we're doing link building for a client, we look at their blog content and figure out, okay, do they have any aggressive calls to action on the page that are going to immediately turn off a prospect and make them not want to link to this website? So things like chat boxes, things like excessive banner ads, huge full page pop-ups, any navigation that follows you as you scroll. So this is something that we're either going to suggest that they turn off completely and revise and update to make it look a lot better, or maybe at least turn it off short term during our active outreach period, and they can turn it back on once we're done link building to the post. An example of this is in the Medicare space. I found this medicareresources.org site, and I find that their calls to action are just poorly, not really well designed, and they have too many on the page. They have the scrolling nav, they have the call now, they have the banner ad. It's just a lot for one blog post. A good example is medigap.com. They still have maybe one too many CTAs on the blog content than I would prefer, but it can just show you how much cleaner the same CTAs can look. They have still the call now navigation at the top, but what's nice is it doesn't follow the user as you scroll. They have a much nicer banner ad to the right-hand side in the sidebar. So just these little tweaks can make a big difference on the linkability and potential for their content. And then my final tip is an unappealing blog role. So you can tell pretty quickly, I think even readers and everyday users are pretty savvy now to understand what is clearly a WordPress template, even if they don't know what WordPress is, what's clearly a WordPress template versus what is something truly customized. So if you're working off of an existing template that is provided to you from your CMS, see how you can level it up and make it feel a lot more custom to your brand. So an example of this is studentloanborrowerassistance.com. If you go to their blog, it clearly looks templated and not customized. I'm seeing things like the byline, just very general. The balance between the images and the title and the preview text is just way off and could use a lot of improvement. It's clear to me that this website took a WordPress or whatever their CMS is, took their template and just published it, that there really wasn't much thought and consideration to what else they could customize on this blog roll. In the same space, if you go to a blog like SoFi, they have a much more appealing blog roll that looks a lot more custom. It's branded nicely with their colors. The treatment of the hero images is a lot more custom. The sidebar just looks a lot better on their content. It's not perfect, but it certainly looks a lot better in the space. So if I'm marketing to college students, they are going to be very brand focused and very brand loyal. And so that is giving them an immediate draw to that brand. And also, if you're doing link building, if you just look like a template site, you clearly didn't put in effort to even build your blog in the first place. So how do you expect that to lend credibility to the content you're trying to pitch to? It just doesn't match up if I'm the person being pitched to. So I hope those tips were helpful. If you're doing a link building campaign, I highly recommend you look at your blog UX and see if you should be making any tweaks. Leave any questions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.